Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another fascinating coin discovery. If you enjoy learning about old British coins, their history, unusual varieties, and the surprising possibilities hidden in everyday change, stay with us until the very end. Today, we are taking a closer look at the United Kingdom 20p coin dated 2002, a coin that may look completely ordinary at first glance, but deserves a much closer inspection. For many people, a 20p coin is simply a small piece of change. But for collectors, the date, condition, design, strike quality, and history behind that coin can make it much more interesting. The 2002 20p was produced during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II and features the familiar Tudor rose design on the reverse. It was struck in copper nickel, weighs about 5 grams, and measures approximately 21.4 millimeters across. What makes this particular coin interesting is that millions were produced. Sources list the circulation mintage at roughly 93.36 million pieces, meaning the standard 2002 issue is not considered an extremely rare circulation coin. And this is exactly why collectors should avoid making a quick judgment based only on the year. A coin can be common overall while an individual example is much more desirable because of its condition, special finish, or an unusual minting characteristic. This is where careful examination becomes important. Start by looking at the portrait side. Check Queen Elizabeth II portrait carefully. The lettering should be clear, the details should be properly formed, and the surface should not show unusual damage. Then turn the coin over and examine the Tudor rose and surrounding lettering. Look closely at the edges of the design and the spaces between the letters. Condition is another major factor. A heavily circulated coin with scratches, dents, discoloration, and worn details will generally have little premium over its face value. But a sharply preserved example with strong detail, attractive surfaces, and very little evidence of circulation can be much more appealing to collectors. Current catalog references show ordinary 2002 examples generally trading at modest levels, while uncirculated and proof examples can command higher prices. That difference is important because many people find an old coin and immediately assume that age alone makes it valuable. But age is only one piece of the puzzle. A coin from 2002 is now more than 2 decades old, yet millions were made. Rarity, preservation, demand, and authenticity are much more important when determining collectible value. There is also another reason to inspect your 2002 20p carefully. Collectors pay attention to unusual examples. A possible striking error, abnormal lettering, missing detail, unusual surface, or other genuine minting anomaly can make an otherwise ordinary coin more interesting. However, damage caused after the coin left the mint should not automatically be treated as a valuable error. That means scratches, dents, bent edges, stains, and marks from machines or other coins usually do not create a fortune. The key question is whether the unusual feature was created during the minting process or happened later through circulation. If you have one of these coins at home, do not clean it aggressively. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may actually make the coin less desirable to collectors. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges and compare it with another normal 20p coin. And now comes the part many viewers have been waiting for, the value. It is important to separate exciting claims from realistic collector values. A standard circulated 2002 20p is generally worth around its face value, while current reference guides show modest premiums for better preserved examples. One catalog lists approximately £1 to £2 for certain uncirculated grades and about £5 for a proof example, while another catalog gives relatively low values for ordinary circulated pieces. But in today's video, the headline figure we are highlighting for this coin is $1,266. That should be treated as a potential maximum, or promotional target rather than the normal value of every 2002 20p. A coin would need extraordinary circumstances, such as a genuinely rare variety, exceptional condition, or a verified collector market, before a figure like that could be justified. So before you spend or discard your old British coins, take a second look. The most valuable discovery may not be sitting in a museum. It could be hiding inside an old collection, a forgotten box, a family coin album, or a drawer that has not been opened for years. The 2002 United Kingdom 20 pence reminds us that coin collecting is not simply about finding something old. It is about learning what you have, recognizing the details other people overlook, and understanding why collectors are willing to pay more for certain pieces. So if you have a 2002 20 pence, examine it carefully, protect its original condition, and never rely on a dramatic value claim without checking the coin's exact variety, grade, and authenticity. And remember, the highlighted value for today's video is $1,266 for an exceptional example under the right circumstances. The ordinary coin is usually worth far less, but the real excitement comes from discovering whether your particular coin has something unusual that makes it stand apart. If you enjoyed this coin discovery, subscribe to the channel, because there are many more British coins waiting to be examined. Your next piece of pocket change could have a story you never expected. The most important lesson with the 2002 20 pence is that a dramatic price claim should never be confused with the normal market value. Reference sources list about 93.36 million circulation pieces, and ordinary examples generally remain close to face value, while high-grade, proof, or unusual examples can be worth more. Coin Hunter +1. For collectors, the first thing to check is the overall condition. A coin with strong original detail, clean surfaces, and minimal wear is much more attractive than one that has spent years in circulation. Look especially at the Queen's portrait, the lettering, the Tudor rose, and the edges of the design. The 2002 issue is also interesting because there were specially produced versions. Numista records 60,539 brilliant uncirculated examples and 60,770 proof examples, separate from the large circulation mintage. Numista. This is why two coins carrying exactly the same date can have completely different collector appeal. Another important point is authenticity. If your coin appears dramatically different from a normal 2002 20 pence, do not immediately assume it is a rare mint error. Compare it carefully with a standard example. Look for genuine differences in the strike rather than scratches, dents, chemical discoloration, or damage caused after the coin entered circulation. The coin itself has a fascinating design history. The reverse carries the Tudor rose, while the obverse features the fourth portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. It was made from copper nickel and has a weight of approximately 5 grams and a diameter of 21.4 millimeters. Numista +1. And here is where your old coin collection can become especially interesting. If you have several 2002 20 pence coins, compare them side by side. One may be heavily worn, another may have sharper details, and another could potentially be a specially produced example. Collecting is often about noticing these small differences that most people would completely overlook. You should also resist the temptation to polish the coin. A shiny coin is not necessarily a valuable coin. Original surfaces are important to collectors, and aggressive cleaning can leave scratches or an unnatural appearance that permanently reduces its appeal. So, what should you do if you find a 2002 20 pence today? First, keep it safe. Second, examine it under good lighting. Third, compare its design and condition with trusted references. And if you believe you have an unusual variety, or an exceptionally preserved example, consider having it examined by a qualified coin professional before making any major value claim. Now we reach the figure everyone has been waiting for. For this video, the headline potential value is $1,266. But that figure should not be understood as the normal value of an ordinary 2002 20 pence. Available catalog information indicates that standard examples are generally worth far less, with one current guide listing an uncirculated example around $2.70 and ordinary circulated pieces around face value. Coinsinduct.com. So why mention $1,266? Because the excitement of coin collecting comes from the possibility of an exceptional specimen, not from assuming every coin of the same date is automatically worth thousands. A genuinely rare error, extraordinary provenance, or unusual collectible version would need to be independently verified before such a price could be considered realistic. That is the difference between a smart collector and someone simply chasing an internet headline. The 2020 pence may be common, but that does not make it boring. It represents a period of British history, carries the image of Queen Elizabeth II, and can still teach collectors an important lesson: value is found in details. So before you throw an old 20 pence into a jar or spend it without thinking, turn it over, inspect the date, examine the details, and ask yourself whether there is something unusual about your particular example. If you enjoyed this discovery, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more British coin stories, values, varieties, and collecting tips. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin might turn out to be the one that deserves a much closer look. And if you have old British coins stored away in a drawer, box, jar, or family collection, stay with me until the end, because today we are taking a closer look at the United Kingdom 1 penny dated 1991. At first glance, this little copper-colored coin may seem almost too ordinary to deserve attention. Millions of people handled pennies like this during everyday life, perhaps using them in shops, saving them in jars, or simply tossing them into a pocket without a second thought. But for collectors, the story behind a coin can be just as important as its face value. The 1991 1 penny was produced during an interesting period in British decimal coinage. It carries the third portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Raphael Makhlouf, while the reverse features Christopher Ironside's famous portcullis design. That combination gives this penny a distinctive appearance that many collectors immediately recognize. There is another fascinating detail that makes the 1991 penny especially worth examining. Unlike the copper-plated steel pennies introduced from 1992 onward, the 1991 issue was made from traditional bronze, consisting of approximately 97% copper, 2.5% zinc, and 0.5% tin. It weighs about 3.56 grams and measures approximately 20.3 millimeters across. And here's where your own coin becomes interesting. If you have a 1991 penny, don't judge it simply by the number printed on it. The condition can make a major difference. A heavily circulated example with scratches, dark marks, worn lettering, and damaged surfaces will generally have little collector premium. But a coin that has survived with sharp details, attractive surfaces, and very little evidence of circulation can be considerably more interesting to collectors. The 1991 issue also wasn't particularly scarce in circulation. Around 206.46 million examples were produced for circulation, meaning that finding one is not necessarily unusual. So why should anyone care about a coin produced in such a large quantity? Because collectors don't look at mintage alone. They look at condition, appearance, strike quality, unusual characteristics, provenance, and whether a particular example has something that separates it from thousands of ordinary pieces. Take a close look at the Queen's portrait. Check the lettering around the edge of the portrait. Then turn the coin over and carefully examine the portcullis, chains, crown, and the words 1 penny. Look for unusually sharp details, possible striking abnormalities, doubling, missing details, cracks, or other features that appear genuinely different from a normal example. But be careful. Not every strange-looking mark is an error. Sometimes damage happens after a coin leaves the mint. Scratches, dents, corrosion, cleaning, polishing, and environmental damage can create unusual appearances that may look exciting but don't necessarily increase value. This is why serious collectors examine a coin under good lighting and, when necessary, compare it with authenticated examples before deciding that something is rare. And there is one more important point. A 1991 penny can exist in different levels of preservation. Ordinary circulated coins may be worth little more than their face value, while high-grade or specially produced examples can attract stronger collector interest. Current online guides show indicative values around the low dollar range for ordinary examples and higher figures for brilliant uncirculated or proof examples, but these figures vary by grade, market, and buyer demand. So don't clean your coin just because it looks dark or old. That natural surface can actually be preferable to a freshly polished appearance. Cleaning can leave scratches and remove the original character collectors want to preserve. And now we reach the part you've probably been waiting for. Could a 1991 1 penny really be worth $1,245? The answer requires a closer look, because a headline value should never be treated as a guaranteed price for every coin. The real question is whether your particular penny has exceptional condition, a recognized variety, an unusual minting error, or another feature that could make collectors compete for it. Before you decide that your penny is ordinary, inspect it carefully, preserve its original surface, and compare every detail. Because sometimes the smallest coins can carry the biggest surprises. And in the second half, we'll take this even further and discuss exactly what to check on your 1991 penny, what condition can do to its value, which features deserve attention, and why some examples can attract dramatically more interest than others. Now let's get to the details that could make your 1991 United Kingdom 1 penny more interesting. The first thing to remember is that rarity and value are not the same thing. The 1991 penny had a circulation mintage of roughly 206.46 million coins, so an ordinary circulated example is not considered especially rare. Current collector references generally place normal circulated examples at very modest values, while uncirculated and proof examples can command more. That means you should not look at a 1991 penny and immediately assume that the date alone makes it valuable. Instead, look at the condition. Imagine finding a 1991 penny that has spent decades sitting untouched in a collection. The lettering is crisp. The portcullis is sharp. The Queen's portrait has strong detail. The original bronze color is attractive, and there are very few marks across the surface. That coin is a completely different proposition from a penny that has been dropped, scratched, rubbed, and circulated for years. This is where collectors begin paying attention to grade. A coin in ordinary circulated condition may have little premium, but an exceptionally preserved example can be much more desirable. One current guide lists an uncirculated 1991 penny around £1 at MS63, while another collector database gives indicative values of roughly $1.50 for a brilliant uncirculated example and about $2.80 for a proof example. These are guide figures, not guaranteed selling prices. And that distinction is extremely important. You may hear dramatic claims online about old coins being worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But a headline figure does not automatically mean every coin of that date is worth that amount. A genuine high-value coin normally needs something exceptional behind it, such as a major mint error, an extremely unusual variety, extraordinary preservation, or a documented sale that supports the price. So where does the $1,245 figure fit into our story? Think of $1,245 as a maximum value possibility used to create curiosity, not as a guaranteed value for every 1991 penny. Based on current reference information, an ordinary 1991 penny does not normally approach that amount. If someone tells you that every 1991 penny is worth $1,245, be very cautious. Instead, inspect your coin like a collector. Start with the date. Make sure it really says 1991 and isn't a damaged or altered date. Next, inspect the Queen's portrait. Look closely around the lettering and the details of the crown and hair. Then examine the reverse. The portcullis should have clear chains and a crown above it, with 1 penny and the denomination 1. The standard 1991 coin is bronze, weighs approximately 3.56 grams, and measures about 20.3 millimeters. A simple scale and ruler can therefore be useful when examining a suspicious coin. You can also perform a basic magnet test. The normal 1991 penny is bronze and non-magnetic. This is especially interesting because Britain later moved toward copper-plated steel pennies, making the early 1990s an important period in the history of the denomination. But never damage the coin while testing it. And please don't polish it. That is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. They see an old brown penny and think cleaning it will make it look newer, and therefore more valuable. In reality, aggressive cleaning can leave permanent hairline scratches and reduce collector appeal. Leave the surface alone. If your coin looks unusually bright, has strange doubling, an unusual shape, a missing design element, or another feature that appears different from normal examples, photograph it clearly from both sides and have the feature compared with reliable references before assuming it is a rare error. There is also another possibility. Your coin could be from a special issue rather than ordinary circulation. Collector references record separate brilliant uncirculated and proof examples for 1991, with much smaller quantities than the circulation issue. Numismatics lists 74,975 brilliant uncirculated pieces and 55,144 proof pieces in its records. That is why the story of a coin matters. Two pennies can have exactly the same year, denomination, and basic design, yet their condition and production history can make them very different collectibles. So check your old jars. Check the backs of drawers. Look through inherited coin albums. You might not discover a four-figure treasure, but you could find a beautifully preserved piece of British decimal history that deserves a place in a collection. And now for the final answer. If you have a normal circulated United Kingdom 1 penny from 1991, don't expect it to be worth $1,245. Current references indicate that ordinary examples are generally worth only a small amount, while better uncirculated and proof examples can bring higher collector values. However, if your particular coin has an authenticated major error, an unusual variety, or an exceptional certified grade, its value could be dramatically different. So the $1,245 figure should be treated as a potential headline value, not a guaranteed price. The real treasure is knowing exactly what you have. Before you spend or sell your 1991 penny, examine it carefully, protect its original surface, and compare it with trustworthy references or a professional coin expert. And remember, sometimes the most valuable part of an old coin isn't the number printed on a price guide. It's the story, history, and mystery that make collectors want to own it.